now we're going to turn to June Williamson to start to talk about, how the suburbs are actually built and constructed and how they can change in their physical manifestations going forward. So June, welcome, and I'll turn it over to you right now.
Hello, everyone. I just want to start perhaps by commenting on the discussion we just had there. I think it fits my thesis about suburbanization and what Richard Fry was just saying, that if these folks who are perhaps in that 25 to 44-year-old age group in the high-priced metropolitan areas like New York, who might be choosing in this context to move to the suburbs for a lower-priced dwelling, will bring their social life and desires with them and may attempt to remake the suburbs that they relocate to be more like the more preferred urban neighborhoods that they're leaving behind. So to move on, I'm June Williamson. I'm an architect, an urban designer, educator, and an ardent advocate for the transformation or retrofitting of the unsustainable, non-resilient, sprawling, inefficient, and increasingly obsolete suburbanized landscapes of Northern America. I've been researching this topic on my own and in collaboration with Ellen Dunham-Jones of Georgia Tech for 20 years. Published 2 books in the Retrofitting Suburbia series, with a 3rd volume forthcoming in January called Case Studies in Retrofitting Suburbia, plus many book chapters, articles, design studios, professional workshops, consulting projects, etc. And some of you may have seen my recent piece in the Washington Post called 5 Myths About the Suburbs, or the Q&A with Julie Lasky in the New York Times, which introduces some of these new case studies. My primary concern is with the physical form of suburbanization. That is the dominant type of urbanization and city building in Northern America for many decades. It's increasingly the dominant approach in many new and fast-growing metropolitan areas around the globe as well. In my definition, suburban form, no matter where it's found, and it could be in a center city or in one of those suburban counties. It's characterized by low density development that is typically coarsely separated by use. That is retail areas separated from residential areas, which are separated from office and business areas. And then the residential areas are often further separated with detached house subdivisions at various price points, separated from apartment complexes and so on. And all of it has been planned and designed around the use of private automobiles, such that you can't actually navigate these places safely without a car. So no or few choices and very little mixing. Next, please. So what is suburban retrofitting? Through these decades of careful study of the deep and rich history of suburbanization, the ideals and design visions, the policies and politics, the economic and social forces, as well as through the collection of case study examples, of which we now have up to 2,000 identified and categorized, Ellen and I have proposed a framework about how processes of retrofitting individual suburban sites, pieces of actual property, may add up over time, incrementally, into the reshaping of metropolitan areas in Northern America, that is the US and Canada. So suburban retrofitting may be summarized as a long-term 50-year project for remaking the metropolis into a more sustainable and resilient, multi-centered system through systemic transformation of these large prototypical single-use suburban sites by 3 urban design strategies. So first is re-inhabitation, and that's various forms of adaptive reuse of vacant buildings and sites, so vacant big box stores and office buildings and so on. Second is redevelopment, which often involves demolition and new construction for urbanization of a site that may be located in a suburb by increasing density, introducing walkability and bikeability in the infrastructure, a mix of uses, and adding transit options. And then third, regreening, which can range from adding small public parks and plazas and small-scale green infrastructure, such as rain gardens, to restoring wetlands ecologies and regional wildlife corridors that had been disrupted by the processes of suburbanization in the 20th century. And these might be used alone or in combination. So it's a kind of restructuring of the geography of metropolitan areas. So why is this relevant to the story of suburbs and the coronavirus pandemic? Certain trends that drive the retrofitting of suburban form have been going on already for some time. And the pandemic seems to be accelerating and intensifying some of them and countering others. So dead and dying shopping malls, vacated office parks, big box stores, and strip malls. We are seeing more closures, more bankruptcies and sell-offs. This can be seen as part of a long overdue correction of overbuilding and sort of cheap building and profit taking over many years. But these losses are painful at the local level, the loss of tax revenue, loss of jobs, and then the eyesore properties that are left behind. But these sites are also places of opportunity, especially for well-located sites in high growth and transit served areas. Working and learning from home. This may change patterns of where people choose to live and work and learn in future. Could be more dispersed geographically, but also more nodal or polycentric, with people drawn to places that have amenities or it kind of demands to introduce those amenities. And it could be more localized. So we might see the emergence of arguments for the 15-minute suburb, for example. And places that are receptive to walking and biking. Then there are planning and zoning changes. So zoning codes and regulations amended to allow and encourage accessory dwelling units, granny flats, backyard cottages, to implement complete streets policies and abolish parking minimums. Next, please. So in the new work, we highlight 6 urgent challenges and analyze a number of case studies through this lens. And I haven't chosen to show a lot of pictures, but they're in the book and you can find them in other publications of mine. So 6 urgent challenges. Disrupt automobile dependence. So COVID-19 has significantly in 2020 reduced greenhouse gas emissions attributable to driving and flying. And more developments with reduced or no accommodation for cars and parking are being proposed in suburban form locations. Second, improve public health. So the pandemic has highlighted how already vulnerable people are more susceptible. And public health researchers have a wealth of documentation about how the sedentary lifestyles associated with suburban form produce heightened risk of obesity and diabetes, of dying in car crashes, and forming addictions. So modest amounts of physical activity encouraged and supported by how places are planned and built or rebuilt are a low-cost cure. Third, support an aging population. And again, demographic trends are pointing to this. So these folks might have a desire to age in community. So what sorts of things will they need to restructuring the suburbs where they already live and to counteract isolation and loneliness. Fourth, leverage social capital for equity. And we've seen this year increased attention to the legacies and ongoing conditions of entrenched structural racism built into the physical environment. So this is big on the political front and also intersects with those demographic changes that were described of increasing diversity. So all Northern American demographic groups are found in suburbs, but they're coarsely sorted. They're unevenly distributed to the extent of segregation. So how can suburban retrofitting help even the field? By adding more resources and opportunities in poor suburbs and opening up access to better resourced places. Fourth, compete for jobs. So retrofits might provide new and different types of job opportunities in locations near where people live, such as in healthcare, elder care, construction and remodeling. And then finally, add water and energy resilience. So this is imperative in the context of the longer, slower, ongoing crisis of climate change. Next, please. So this story then is playing out all over Northern America, and we've got 32 new case studies in the book, and this is just a map of where those examples are located. Thank you.